Alright, so we are starting our new unit on fractions. We talked about it a little bit Friday, and now we're really getting into it. So I really want you to know the standard. What are we expecting you to know by the end? And how we do it is for grade 4, and F, this means numbers and fractions. Oops. And this is standard 1. So we're going to break it down. So this is going to be a little bit of a long sentence, but pause it and write it down because I really, really want you to know what we need to be able to do. So first one is this is what I need you to be able to do by the end. I can explain why two fractions, remember, pause it if you need it, and I'm going to skip a line because I'm going to be taking notes in here. I can explain why two fractions are equivalent. We're going to be saying this word a lot. We're going to talk about what it means. By visualizing fraction models. Okay, so let's break this down before we go into the second part, because this is the first one. Okay, so the words explain, equivalent, and then I want to make sure that you know what visualizing fraction models means. So explain. All that means is tell. I need you to be able to tell me. Tell me why two fractions are equivalent, and that means the same. So I can tell why two fractions are the same by visualizing fraction models. That means using pictures. That's all that means. Okay, so for what this looks like in pictures now is that I can show that 1/2 is the same or equivalent as 2/4. So here's the fraction. And this is the model or picture. I want you to be able to recognize both. And remember, this is equivalent, means the same. So we're going to be able to explain why are these the same? Well, because they are equal. They cover the same amount because they're the same shape. It's just cut into smaller pieces. So this picture has 2 pieces, this picture has 4 pieces, but it's the same picture. Okay, now the second one, pause it if you need it. The second thing that you're going to have to be able to do is I can pick out. Okay, so you're going to be able to explain, and then the second one is I can, recognize, didn't mean that. I can recognize, make sure I spelled it right, and generate equivalent fractions. So by the end of this unit, these are the two things that I want you to be able to do. Well, some of the two things. All right. Recognize and generate. Okay. So recognize, that means you know it. You can pick it out. When you recognize something, you know it. So you're going to be able to know and pick it out. And generate is make. When you generate something, you make it. So we're going to learn ways to make equivalent fractions. And remember, equivalent means the same. Okay, so pause the video if you need to write those down, and then we're going to do some examples. We're going to do examples with pictures, and then we're going to do examples with multiplication. All right, so the first example is this, and I'm going to use rectangles because it's a little bit easier to draw than circles. So I'm going to take my rectangle here. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do half. And that one's pretty easy to recognize. So we're going to find equivalent fractions for half. And I'm going to color in half here. Okay, so equivalent means the same as, equal. So it's the same shape. I'm going to take the same shape, but this time I still want half. So I'm going to still color in half, but I'm going to make it into more equal parts. I'm going to divide it this way. So it's the same shape, it's still half, but now what is my denominator? How many parts do I have altogether? I have 4 parts altogether. And how many parts are colored? 2. So that means they are equivalent. Okay, so now let's make one more. So same shape. We're going to start with half because we want to start with equivalent, and then I'm going to add another line here and another line here. So they're equal parts still. They're still equal parts, but now, and then I'm going to do one more line here. Okay, so it's still half of the shape. It's still half of the shape, but now, what's the denominator? How many parts do we have? 8. And how many parts are colored in? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. So that means all of these are equivalent fractions for 1/2. So this is the same, 2/4 is the same as 1/2. 4/8 is the same as 1/2. So equivalent means the same as. So we're going to be able to pick these out, and it's not just for 1/2, we're going to be able to do it for 1/3, 1/4, 1/5. So this is with drawing pictures. Now drawing pictures can get a little tricky, especially if our parts are an odd number. So let me show you the multiplication way of finding equivalent fractions. So we're going to go ahead and take 1/3 this time. Now when we're going to use multiplication for this. I want to remind you of something you learned from 3rd grade. So 1 whole can look like the numerator has to be the same and the denominator has to be the same. So 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6. Okay, so that's all 1 whole. When the numerator is the same as the denominator, it's 1 whole. So what we're going to do is, how did we get from 1 to 2 over here and 2 to 4? What could we multiply? That's right, we can multiply by 2. But whatever we do to the top, we have to do to the bottom. and we're multiplying it by 1 whole. So to do this with multiplication, what you think of, and this is going to be our think, I'm going to multiply this by 2, and I'm going to multiply this by 2. So this is my think. That's my think, and I'm going to do it without my picture. And so then I have equal. 1 times 2 is 2, and 3 times 2 is 6. So that means 2/6 is the same as or equivalent as 1/3. And so I'm going to just do my picture here to prove it. So I'm going to have my same rectangle, and I'm going to have my thirds. Okay? So there's 1/3. All right, I'm saying it's the same as 2/6. So I'm going to make 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I made it by 2 more parts, didn't I? And it's the same. 1/3 is the same as 2/6. So I just proved that this mathematical strategy is another way to do it besides drawing pictures. They mean the same thing. All right, so let's find another one for 1/3. So we've got 1/3, and we can multiply. Let's multiply by 4. If I multiply by 4 on the top, I have to multiply by 4 on the bottom. And this is my think. This is how I make equivalent fractions without drawing the pictures. So 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So 4/12 is this equivalent to 1/3. Okay, so taking that same picture, this is the last time we're going to prove it with the picture. And we have our 1/3, and we've colored it in. And now we're going to draw our lines. I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, because I said I multiplied it by 4. So my new lines are 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's count to see if I have 12 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's how I got the 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how I got the 4, because I added 4 more lines. All right, so let's just try another one. So we've got 1/3, and let's multiply it by 5. If I multiply it by the top, I gotta multiply by the bottom. And then I just multiply across. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. So we are making equivalent fractions. This is how to make equivalent. Remember, that means the same fractions. And we are using multiplication. We are using multiplication. So the thing to remember is whatever your fraction is. So if I have 2/3 and I'm asked to make equivalent fractions, all I have to do is multiply it by how many pieces you want, but whatever you do, you multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, and that's our think, equals 2 times 4 is 8, and 3 times 4 is 12. So 8/12 is the same as 2/3. So 8/12 is equivalent to 2/3. So we'll be practiced today making equivalent fractions. Once we understand this, we don't have to draw it anymore. The drawing was just to help you to prove to you that what I'm telling you does still make those fractions the same.